Welcome to English for Professional Mechanical Engineers. My name is Yiji. I'm so happy to have this chance to speak to you about presentation signpost expressions. And this is the third section of this unit. This is the outline of the all topics for presentation signpost expressions. It's divided into 4 parts. I use 4 colors to distinguish the 4 parts. The first part is about how to start a presentation. The second and third part are signpost expressions during its presentation. And the final section is how to end a presentation. The green part are the topics covered in the previous video. This video is going to introduce the topics in gray. The items numbers are 7, 8, and 9 in this slide. The materials will cover 1. Underlying points. 2. Referring backwards and forwards. 3. Referring to study weaknesses. Alright, are you ready? Let's go. Topic 7. Underlying points. During a presentation, you probably would like to emphasize some points. In this situation, you may use the sentences like, "Please remember that." "Please remember that." "It's important to remember that." "It's important to remember that." Or, "This is important because," or, "This is significant because." This is important to use these sentences because the audience will pay more attention to the points that you are talking. In addition, you may probably use some short but powerful phrases like, "Please notice that." "Please notice that." "Note this point." "Note this point." Or, these 2 phrases could be useful to draw the audience's attention. Next, you may use the sentence like the following to make audience remember this point. "You are probably thinking that," and you are right. Or, "You are probably thinking that, but this would be a mistake." These 2 sentences start by something that the audience are thinking. Then it moves on to some agreement or disagreement. And this kind of structure can draw more attention from the audience and allow them to follow your talk more easily. Right? Was that clear? So, I will move on to the next part. 8. Referring backwards and forwards. It happens all the time that you have to remind the audience that something that you have said previously during the presentation. What sentences that you can use in this situation? Okay, "You remember I said." "You will remember I said." "Just to repeat what I said earlier." "Just to repeat what I said earlier." "As I mentioned earlier." "As I mentioned earlier." "Do you remember I said?" "Do you remember I said?" Especially, you may use these sentences when you want to recap the talk or do the summary in the end of the presentation. The previous sentences are referring forwards. How about sometimes we are referring backwards? It means we are going to skip something right now, but we will come back to the talk about that afterwards. Alright, these are some sentences that we can use in this situation. I'll talk more about this later. I will talk more about this later. Don't worry, if this is not so clear now, I will explain the details later. Don't worry, if this is not so clear now, I will explain the details later. It means that you may feel that the audience has difficulty at this moment, but probably you have to move on to the next point right now. Therefore, you promised to come back to this point later. Furthermore, you may say something short but clear, like, more on this later on. More on this later on. The details will come later. The details will come later. Or you may just ask the audience, can I come back to this later? Can I come back to this point later? It also means that you are going to skip this point right now, but you will come back to it later. Okay, you may use these sentences freely based on the situation. Alright, so what's the next? 9. Referring to study weakness. Usually, we do not like to show our weakness. However, nothing is perfect. Especially, research is always based on some weak points, and we try to build some progress on the previous results. Therefore, it's very common to show some weakness. But how to mention the weak points with respect? One easy way is, of course, our study cannot conclusively say that. Of course, our study cannot conclusively say that. It means nothing is perfect, as I mentioned earlier. As a result, our research is also not flawless, and it cannot conclusively say something without any doubt. This sentence offers some space for your research to be imperfect. Next, you could probably be very open-minded and do not worry about a fault in the research by saying that. You may be able to see the weakness in our study. You may be able to see the weakness in our study. It is quite open to say it directly, but it could be your purpose to introduce something that your research team has improved afterwards. Then you could draw their attention to some points and figure out a deep and probably complex issue. Okay, the next sentence is more complicated, but you may like it to learn. We need to look at X in more detail, and a further study with Y might confirm our findings. We need to look at X in more detail, and a further study with Y might confirm our findings. Please notice that you recommend the audience to look at X and study Y, and then they can confirm your findings. This is a cool sentence to remember. Good. That brings us to my last point about the presentation signpost expressions. This section has covered 3 parts. First, underline points. Second, referring backwards and forwards. Finally, referring to study weakness. So finally, this is the end of the section. So much for today. Thank you for watching. Hope you have learned something useful from this lecture. Have a good time and see you in the next one. Goodbye.